So let's talk about the album.
Okay.
I Like It When You Sleep, for you are so beautiful yet so unaware of it. Period. Did you go in with that title in mind saying, you know what? Let's break a Guinness World Record for longest album title.
I think that okay, there's reverb on there, Dixon. Oh, there you go. I think it did come before a lot of the songs.
Really?
Just due to a kind of bold decision. I think that we were trying to make bold decisions and not be scared of stuff, because we were a bit scared of stuff. So we kind of set out on kind of just embracing anything that we felt was kind of, I don't know, particularly weird or particularly us. And that was a lyric on a record, and not on a song. It wasn't the best record, or it wasn't the most relevant, the best lyric or the most relevant, or it was just our lyric. And at one point we just said, well, let's just fucking call it that, because it, then we have to make a ridiculous album. Then all of the fears become contextualized by the fact that it's called that.
Makes
so
sense.
Doesn't, you know what I mean? So it stopped us from kind of worrying about it, because it's like, oh, that's ridiculous. It's like, that's ridiculous.
So when you say that you're dealing with fears, it's hard for me to wrap my head around that, because it seems like at the time you guys are the biggest band on the planet. So what would you be afraid of?
Being the biggest band on the planet.
Okay. All right.
No, I think that, it was loads of things. I mean, what it was that we were like we were a bedroom band. We weren't like, there's this whole story of how we came out and stuff like that, but we started this when we were like 13. You dropped your phone. We started this when we were very young, and it was a very personal endeavor. And when the first album became successful, even though there was an element of us being like, fucking yeah, this is awesome, we were kind of, it was also like somebody had kind of taken our diary or taken our collection of things that we'd done, and that had become successful. So it was like, what do we do now that people know who we are? Because the reason that we're successful off the first album was doing something that wasn't objectified. It wasn't voyeured. There was nobody watching it. So it was returning to the kind of the purity of that was scary, because we weren't that person anymore. We didn't live in Manchester anymore. We were on tour. We hadn't written in a bedroom anymore. It was all different. So we kind of just made sure that the environment that we created, I Like It When You Sleep, was kind of as similar to, the ethos of like our bedrooms.
When you ended up putting together all these songs that were all different genres of music, was that on purpose, or did that kind of evolve as you were putting them all together?
You could say it's on. I mean, it's like people's iPods nowadays contain Carole King and Boards of Canada and Nina Simone and A$AP Rocky, so you could consider that to be on purpose. So I suppose that being an ambassador for that kind of ambassador sounds like a wanky thing to say, but being somebody who stands for that idea of a kind of non-linear consumption of music, we always say we create in the way that we consume. So I suppose that's on purpose in the way that we cultivate it, but the only reason we cultivate it is because it kind of happens naturally. Like, it's partially to do with the attention span that my generation has. I don't have enough attention span for one type of music.
Okay.
Do you know what I mean? So would get bored, or like, I think a lot of bands as well, they see other bands and they kind of want to be like that band, and that band will have a very particular sound, and then they'll make their sound like that. But we kind of do that with songs. We fall in love with songs, and we want songs to sound like that song. And then it becomes a collection of everything,
I love that. I think that that's a great way to approach a body of work, especially because I always see people asking you who your influences are, which is such a broad range, like you just said. I mean, Nina Simone, A$AP Rocky, D'Angelo, Prince.
Yeah, massively, yeah.
I think the shorter list would be who does not influence the 1975, or what?
In like indie music,
Okay.
Like, well, that's more of a UK thing. I mean, I think it'd be different to say that in America because, you know, like bands like the Strokes and stuff like that, they're incredible. But I mean, there's scenes of indie in the UK that's kind of like directly unaspirational. That's what I don't like about it. It doesn't it's all based on like scenes and geography and where you're from and what's cool and what's not, and it's all kind of quite faux, and everybody's very petrified of being perceived as being ambitious, because that would be perceived as being pretentious, which would affect the little status quo of all the other little indie bands that you need to make sure think are as cool as you are, and it's all fucking boring. So that doesn't inspire me.
That makes a lot of sense to me.